What's up, everybody? We're back, locked in for another episode of Data Delicacies. This show is powered by Incentivio, hosted by yours truly, Arun. This is where we bring the best and brightest. And we have a very, very, very bright person on the show today to talk all things industry, talk all things tech, and who better than good friend Jason Berkowitz from AeroUp. Jason, how are you?
Insert applause. Doing great. Good to be here. And I'd say long-time listener, but it's a new podcast, new show. And I've had a lot of fun. I've been doing some traveling, so I've had a lot of fun diving into these previous episodes. And I think they've been incredible. And so I'm excited to be here and join the roster.
Yes, appreciate you tuning in. I've had the fortune of knowing you well before this and being connected. And I've always enjoyed. I think you're one of the best storytellers in this industry. I think sitting across from you at a dining table at any restaurant that's like, if anyone, whoever's listening, if you get a chance to go to dinner with Jason or drinks, make sure you get sit as close as possible so you can get to hear all the good stories. So,
Right.
Glad you're
outside
on.
Industry.
Yeah. Glad you're on, Jason. For the folks listening, why don't you paint a picture of kind of your experience in the industry and what brought you to starting AeroUp?
Yeah, great to be here. I guess I'll talk about my first impression in restaurants, right? And so Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised, parents divorced when I was fairly young. And so my mom, she started, it was great. She called it the Clothes Cellar with a C instead of an S. And it was in our basement. And she was selling to her friends. And that was her way of being home for us when we got home from school and still bringing a couple bucks in. And she then, which was probably my tap into entrepreneurial, approaches and spirits. She then built it up and moved out of the spot and got a retail spot. And she shared a parking lot with I was realizing one of my favorite restaurants, which is this Burger King over on Cedar and Miramar in Cleveland. And I was obsessed. Fries, onion rings, Whopper. And I remember being about 14 and visiting her. I would stop there after school. And I just kept looking over and I'm like, I got to work there. And I remember I came back. My mom's like, "You're 14. You can't work there." I'm like, "This is Cleveland. You can do anything you want, right?" And she's like, "If you can do it." And so I walked in and I asked for the manager and I introduced myself. And he's like, "Yeah, you're too young." And then I came in the next day. And then I came in the next day. And then I came in the next week. And then my mom come in with me and she's like, "Look, I'll sign a work waiver. I'll sign whatever you want. We just got to shut this kid up. I can't take it." And to me, I think the reason I was thinking about this story recently, the reason it matters is because it was not just the food, it was the vibe. I walked in, people were lining up, people were smiling, the employees were joking around behind the counter, the music was going. I loved the vibe of it. I mean, even in a Burger King, this was what I was introduced to, and I needed to be a part of the vibe. And then I needed to jump in on the teamwork. And I'd always played sports and really loved the team element of it. And so getting into that really helped me understand the power of connecting with a cohort of people around you and working together. Now, there's all the stuff that you'll learn and you'll build. But that I've only recently realized how informative that was, because I think as we're trying to figure out how to attract a generation of people coming into the restaurant, how do we get, cross generations, right? You got younger, older, everyone coming together. Yeah. Vibe, it matters. And that you're building a space that people want to be a part of, that no matter where you are in life, you want to be a part of this vibe. And it's just so important. And I realized that, and that kind of carried my way through. And then I realized, I can help the local coffee house, improve what they were selling. And I kind of was probably far too confident in myself, a bit of a punk, but I would go and I took over their ordering and brought in my friends and kind of like understood again an entirely different vibe, an entirely different cultivation of what's the music, what's the smells, what's the taste, who's playing around it. And Burger King is not hacky sacking, at the time. the coffee house where it was acoustic guitars, hacky sax, and you
Mm.
know, old men speaking Yiddish, all coming together, which was kind of funny, and it was great. Moved on to college, got my degree in psychology, which I think really helped what I love because I
Mm.
love the idea of how do people come together? What's a mutual understanding? What's a misunderstanding? And I think I was always drawn to the idea of the restaurant. Part of the vibe was the misfits, right? We're all a little crazy. We're all out of our mind. And all of this kind of comes together in sort of feeling like I'm with my tribe. It could change, it could translate, it could shift from Burger King to a coffee house to an Italian restaurant. But I'm with my people because there's similar things that we love and a similar feel and a similar vibe that was kind of carrying over no matter what it was. And I carried that with me as I kind of progressed and eventually moved to management. And then eventually moved up through training. And I guess, I don't know, to jump into why I started Arrow Up,
Mm.
maybe pause for a quick second. I'll take you to the next one. But, that I want to first talk for a second and say, as we're all kind of like figuring this out, Vibe brought me in the door. Vibe keeps me coming back. Vibe is what I'm obsessed over. And I think a lot of us can really lean into that a lot.
Mm. I love that. I think if I think about the places I frequent, it's because of that. Like the food, sometimes I go to places where the food's okay, but the vibe is great, right? And there's some places that the food is amazing and the vibe is okay. Some places the food is great, but the vibe's not so much. Where I'll choose the vibe every single time. And then I think too, it's when you see the staff at the restaurant having a great time, where it's like, hey, even they want to be here. It's like, yeah, I want to be here, right? Versus like some places where the staff is maybe checked out or disgruntled or just they all seem to be like strangers to each other.
Yeah.
And you can pick it up if they're all super close and like doing their thing, right? And you kind of want to hang out there, and then just chatting with them. You can chat with all of them, and it's fun. Sometimes just sitting in a bar and just chat with the bartender, you chat with the other bartender, you chat with the waitress, you chat with the person at the front. So yeah, I think I can definitely resonate with that. But I love the way you know you share that, because I think you talk about your tribe and what makes you feel comfortable. I think that's what hospitality is, right? Like that's why a lot of folks I think that do really well in this space are folks that started, early stages behind making the fries or as a bartender, and then now they've worked their way up, and then they then see, hey, there's a gap here, and I'm going to now create something to fill that gap.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, I started off in the kitchen, and since then they've kicked me out of the back of house or the front of house with Burger King. But I challenged everybody that I was going to be the King Whopper topper, and I was just challenging people, who can make the fastest Whopper. And that's actually where I learned, great, you can make it faster, but can you make it cleaner and
Mm.
faster? Right. And I just watched an episode of The Bear in season 3 coming through, and Olivia Colman, faster, cleaner, faster chef. And I loved that. I heard that at Burger King at 14. Great, but cleaner and faster matters. And so
So
carrying this,
just sorry, just you talk about the bear real quick tangent. I
yeah,
love the show. I think I haven't seen the new season of season 3. Watched the first one. I thought that was great. Just him preparing all those dishes, showing like how he got to where he was. As someone that's been in the trenches of the industry and like for years, would you say the bear is a good representation of hospitality and working really in restaurants to people that don't know anything about it?
but it's a loaded question. So season 1's killing me because I'm watching it and I'm like, I know the two most important words in running a business are cash flow. That's what I was taught a long time ago. Now you could say it's order accuracy, it's employee engagement, all these types of things. It all comes to that, right? And anyone who owns a business understands those two words. And I know you can't stop the business for a day because you can't stop the cash flow, but I wanted them to shut down for one day, rip the whole office apart, clean everything up, put it back together, figure out the systems. I just wanted to come in for a 24-hour boot camp and just go, you are death by 1,000 paper cuts. So it killed
Yeah.
me, the disorganization, the functionality. We can get into this later, but my role for many years in the industry was You had something that was working. You had two locations. Well, I came in, I put all the systems and processes in place to scale you. To me, it is such a measure twice, cut once, or excuse me, an ounce of prevention, pound of cure. So back to season one, I'm just watching their account payables and their systems and accounting, and I'm like, just stop for one day. We can't stop. I know,
Yeah.
but you can, because if you do, it's all going to catch up right. So that's a good account for it. But I can tell you, I would have not allowed that, or I would have gone in. As the arc unfolds, I think it's really cool as it moves to this beautiful, poetry almost. I absolutely believe that we attract artists and, as I said, misfits. And, we inherit the lost. And we inherit the ones who are disgruntled and angry
Mm.
and believe in things. So in that sense, it's an accurate depiction. Then the industry has so many different layers to it. Like I said, I started in Burger King. My most recent job was COO for Tokyo Organica, which is fast casual, elevated fast casual. But I also built, when Gucci Osteria opened their first restaurant in the United States in 2020 with Chef Massimo Bottura, they tapped me and I built their training program.
Mm.
And so that's dope, because that's the pinnacle, right? And they got a Michelin star. So I've built the training and worked with the Michelin star restaurants. And I also love the local taco shop. I think it's a good depiction of what that goal that they're going for, which is the best of the best. And they've done a really good job bringing in unbelievable, Will Guidara and Chef Dan, from in Santa Monica, from Pajuli, and all these different people.
Mm.
But the restaurant industry is, some people go for Michelin, some people go for the local taco shop, some people want the pizza. So it's a representation of just the vast arc of what you can get and who you
Right.
can attract. Does
Right.
that help answer?
No, that does. I mean, I think, I love asking this question because it's, it's funny. My wife and I watch, right? My wife, she's very different world. She's a partner in an accounting firm in tax, right? She's a tax specialist. So, for her, she's watching the show and she's like, I don't get why they're doing things like this. Like, why is it da-da-da, da-da-da? And I'm watching it being like, yeah, like I see, this is what I hear. And, I find there's even more of a respect now for folks that do it because of you see how challenging it is and how chaotic it is. And you got to keep going, right? You can't just stop and reset. You have to just keep going and almost like build a plane as you fly it. So it's always, I love getting the perspective of folks that are in the industry versus aren't. And it's funny because the folks that aren't, I mean, I remember there was, when I was at Seven Shifts, there was, we had one of the guys on our team, he used to be a bartender for years. And he used to say like, the bear should be something that's like a mandatory watch for people to get a sense of like how to like almost step in their shoes for like a short period. And I thought that was a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's sensationalized and it's a
Yes.
little
Yeah.
unnecessary. A lot of this drama is unnecessary, but it's good for television. If
Yeah.
I'm at the helm of it, I'm not going to be able to curb all the drama, but I'm going to be able to curb some of it. I've worked with Chef April Bloomfield. I've worked with a lot of Chris Costantino. I've worked with a lot of incredible chefs, and I think there's a way that you can frame around them systems and needs that win them back time so that then they have healthier relationships. I think that's what I'm a
Mm.
bit obsessed with, and the tools
Mm.
that I want to give. I'm obsessed with, we're building out training. Some of it we're going to give away for free to everybody everywhere through partnerships, right? And you and I were talking about this a while back and working with different brands. Some of it I charge for because I think there's a real opportunity as we shift for the industry to drop the temperature on the drama a little bit. And a lot of that comes to, well, let's add some processes. Let's
Mm.
digitize some stuff. Let's put up the guardrails. Let's make sure everybody's rowing in the same direction, which comes to, what I genuinely believe, which is everybody just needs to know two things. What's my job and how am I doing?
Mm.
And what's my job, right? Am I trained? Is there a task list that I can understand it? How am I doing? Is the feedback? Is there a digital feedback mechanism? Is there a manager who's giving me feedback? Is there a healthy coworker? A lot of the the crap that happens in the restaurant industry is because of exhaustion and bad communication. So if we can put systems in place, like the simplest thing, like a repair and maintenance system, would have made it that Carmi didn't get stuck in the walk-in.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have led those things. Well, I can tell you something. If it's my company, the that R&M system's in place, that it's not left to one chef, to one thing. There's a trackable system in place. So again, sensationalizing it, I say there's always going to be enough drama. It is a pirate ship, man. This industry is still going to
Yeah.
have a bit of a pirate ship element to it. And I loved being, a bit of a benevolent captain of a ship, right? There's always going to be that, but let's put the guardrails just enough so we can dial it down, because we're going to manufacture enough drama that we all need. It's all going to be there. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for
Mhm.
where we are coming out of the pandemic, because people are embracing systems to put guardrails so that humans can be screwed up together, but move the ball down the field. And that's an exciting time. And I like this conversation coming off the bear, because that's what I want to see. Keep the
Yeah.
artists in line. Let's keep the guardrails going.
Love it. So yeah, I mean, this kind of transitions to now, I think you were about to talk about Aero Up, right? And what
Yeah, yeah.
really kind of, is a good segue going into that. What was like, how did that initially start? And talk about the journey to where you're at today.
Yeah. And so being somebody through Vibe, I really recognize that as much as you can proactively set things in place, then you're less human reactive. And
Mhm.
stating with that, right? If there's a central system that we all understand what the expectations are, then the time working together as humans is more about building relationship and less about nagging and micromanaging and he said, she said, and crap like that. And I'm so obsessed with training to solve what's my job and then how am I doing, that once I became a GM and had the reins, that was it. I went, full speed, 100%. My first GM job, maybe a month or so in, I shut the restaurant down for a day and I did Burko's boot camp. And I was
Mhm.
so excited, right? And I simplified it. It's about personality, product knowledge, table maintenance, and efficiency and steps. Let's go. And broke up acronyms and they made fun of me, but they loved it and they got into it. Never underestimate the power of just somebody being silly and owning it at the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I built that. Then I went into my next set of jobs, whether I was a director, a VP, or chief operating officer. The first 30 days of employment, first thing I did would run around, introduce myself to everybody, and build the training program as fast as I can. And I would get help from cooks and dishwashers, everybody who had a section. I would say, give me your notes, give me your ideas, right? So I'm getting buy-in, I'm getting the real information, and more, a lot of it starts to transfer over and be fairly similar. It's not that different from job
Mhm.
to job if you're basically the regular same style of service. And I would tell everybody, I'm like, don't even email me. I'm not even turning on my email address, because if the second I do that, I'm done building the ship, because now I got to sail it. If you're an operator, anybody's been in operations in any way, shape, or form, you're putting out fires. It's how long can I wake up until you get kicked in the groin?
Yeah.
So I need to be proactive. The second I was reactive and you were going to call me and ask me how to deal with a problem, that's it. I'm now sailing the ship and trying to build it, which is so hard, right? As we're talking. So that's how much I love training and believe in it, that even as the COO, no one talked to me. Then at the last company, about 2 years in, we were raising a significant amount of capital, right? And I think it's fair to say around 20 million. It's a significant, right? We're
Yeah.
closing the deal and I'm sitting in the boardroom, and you think I would be, as I probably should be, worrying much more about hitting the metrics that we've laid out to secure this money. And I'm sitting there Googling, or I'm sitting there doodling, time to burn, time to learn.
Mhm.
And, there's the old time to lean, time to clean, but What's the new stuff? And I'm like, son of a bitch. And I just, you got an idea and it just starts to grow and grow. And I was like, okay, I've taken this company to over 15 units from two, healthy growth, hired VPs, directors, CMOs, everybody really did a good job. Time to go.
Yeah.
And my dream has been for small businesses to build this out of the box solution that everyone can turn it on and we answer the question of the guardrails of what's my job and how am I doing. And I was so excited and I found my creative director and I found my partners and I said, here's what we're doing. And it's this out of the box training in a box package and we're going to sell it to mom and pops. And they all said, that's the greatest idea. It's never going to work. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, no one's going to buy it. I mean, no one's going to buy it. This is what we need. I've done it firsthand. I'll show you the data. This is it. There's no question about it. I know they're not going to do it. Well, what do we do? I don't have a job. I don't have this. They said, well, you know, you wrote the book, Please Don't Sleep with the Host, which I did, which is, 50 tips for managing a functional, profitable restaurant. And it's fun and it's funny. And it's basically two GMs sitting across from each other, talking about how do you navigate the pirate ship.
Right.
They're like, why don't you build anti-harassment training? And I thought about it and I was like, okay, you had the Me Too movement. This was becoming mandatory in California. Why are we rolling out these courses where you've got somebody sitting in an office putting their hand on somebody's knee? That is the cheesiest reenactment. And so I grabbed my creative director. He said, let's just interview a bunch of people. Let's just get stories. And let's tell the right stories the right way. There's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of good people who got in trouble, and there's a lot of bad people who need to get out. And there's a lot of people who are a little bit at a loss. And when I say got in trouble, meaning, hugging became a problem, right? There were rules, and it wasn't just about, people were trying to figure out what was right in an industry where people were going out and getting drunk together after work and then coming in the next day. And so we wanted to help put the lines in place. And I'm really, really proud of that course, because it's raw and it's real and it's authentic and it checks the box of compliance and it's legally, accepted. And it's stories, and it's chefs telling funny stories and people telling raw stories and people crying in it. And it's good and it's heart. Then we moved to safety and started to partner up with insurance companies, which, could be another conversation altogether. But I, to anybody listening, I think insurance is going to be our biggest partner in the future to help us, move through the movement. And then this light bulb went off when a company came to us and said, we're really struggling with our, 20-year-old supervisors being leaders. And I was like, yeah, you can't, it's like myself, somebody's responsible. And then all of a sudden, because they show up on time, you give them a pair of keys and the opportunity to avoid food. And now they're the manager. And I thought about back in college, one of the first real supervisory jobs that I took over at this local coffee house in East Lansing, Michigan. And I'm now a supervisor. And I remember this vividly. And I'm playing in a band, right? And the Masons at the time, then became the High Strung. And this other guy from Grizzly Peach, who's this awesome bass player, comes in and he's our new employee, right? So now I'm his manager. Well, I mean, this guy was the coolest guy in the world to me. All I wanted to do was tour the world with him. And shit, man, now I gotta, I'm excited. I'm excited to work with him. Check out my playlists and it's coffee house vibe. I'm going to curate this thing. This person's going to take me all across the world. Well, now I'm like, all right, he showed up late. Who's going to talk to him?
Right.
And that's the obvious things. But I was kind of out with him the night before. So how do I be upset that he showed up late? Why is it my responsibility? Then it was other things not so obvious, and put the sanitizer rag back in the bucket. Well, no one taught him, right? No, nobody taught him to do this. No, so it's a combination of, what do we train people when they come on board? And that's what I really want to help with the user journey And then how do we empower leaders to have these awkward conversations with people to correct them? So training, he would have known it, in which case, hopefully I never would have had that awkward conversation.
Yeah.
Training to him, training to me is this is how you talk to them. And that story came back to me and I got so excited. And so then we built, you know, these courses to turn supervisors into leaders. And so now we're safety, compliance, leadership development. PAGA reformed, if anyone's in California, is a big thing where penalties are reduced if you train your managers. Well, we've got that training. So we're in this sweet spot. And now what we're moving towards is we're starting to move towards that goal that I had, which is all of it, out of the box training,
Got it.
feedback, all of this coming together, which is starting to happen. So you just kind of got to trust the arc. And those
Yeah.
are multiple stories wound in together for you
That was,
of
yeah, no, that
where
was
we
great.
are.
And, you talk about the turning supervisors into leaders, right? I'm a strong believer of if you're a manager or a supervisor or whatever, that doesn't automatically make you a leader, right? You can be none of those things and you can be a leader. A leader is a leader. Title doesn't make you a leader, right? And I think that,
Yeah.
I tell a lot of people, I remember even with that seven just before, I was like, man, I don't know if I can be a manager. I'm like, it's not whether you're a manager. Are you a leader now? Because that's all you're doing is just leading with the formal title, really. Um, so, you talked about the initial kind of hesitancy from your partners or group being like, hey, like, we don't know if this is going to work, right? Like, what do you think drove that? Because you were obviously seeing a huge gap in the industry, which it's still prevalent. Like it's a forever thing to continue to get there. And I think not only in hospitality, I think it's in, if you look on the, sorry, not only on the operator side, but if you look at the tech side, right? A lot of startups, they struggle with how do you onboard people properly? How do you get them to the right place? Like, what do they, a lot of people just start like, okay, go do the thing. They're like, what thing? Right. So
Right.
what do you think caused that hesitation?
Two things. And it depends on where you are in the arc of, so if it's a SMB, right, 1 to 3, 1 to 5, emerging brand, a little bit bigger, larger market. The hesitation in the SMB was first money. We can't invest in that. When in turn, if you save one person, training lowers turnover by 35 to 70%. If you save one person, that's $5,500. If I charged you $100 a month, the net gain is insane. So it's not understanding that. Second is digital adoption. It wasn't as digital of a time like it is now.
Right.
So I'm removing the barrier because we're going to be giving away freemium trainings and stuff to small operators. It's digital adoption has gone through the roof. Integration with systems playing well with each other. They all don't do it well enough, but we're working on it. Our friend Alistair is driving the Alistair Levine is driving that movement with me and all of us. And I think time to really trust it and understand the problem that it can solve, that it's worth putting your attention to it. Now, Toast did a survey recently, and what was other struggles that they were, operators, supply chain, and different things. One of the number one things that they're looking for is investing in employee engagement and training.
Mm.
So I think all of that was the problem. And now is a great time to start to move through it. So it's ease of adaptability and accessibility as well.
Mm.
And everything that we do, we play to the most hungover, tired, and cost-effective denominator, because that's what the store leader is fairly, not to knock it up, but a lot of them are in that space to some degree. And they're not all drinkers or this, but they're exhausted. They're exhausted. And I'm on a mission to help them win plus 1%, right? You get plus 1% when I've got the energy to reinvest that 1%. Now you compound that 1%. And now you're, 2%. Now you compound that 2%.
Yeah.
And it really does work. And so that's what I think it was. And that's where I think we're moving. And I think there's the ability to blend stuff we can give away for free and break that barrier, and stuff that we can win them over because we're solving a lot of problems with one simple tool.
Yeah. And I'm sure now with the way tech is, I mean, the ability to scale things out compared to how it was before must be much easier now. Um,
Yeah.
you know, so I wanted to ask you this. I was actually thinking about this before we jumped on. Is in a lot of cases, at restaurants, folks that come and work, maybe as the bussers or maybe like early supervisors, maybe they start off looking at it as like, hey, it's a part-time gig. I'm going to make some money for the summer, or I'll work in between, university shifts, or hey, I need to make some money here, so I'm going to get into these roles and then figure things out. How much do you feel that training, right, with the right structure and training, they can then turn that into a career where they can now become leaders, supervisors, work their way up in different departments? Do you feel there's some sort of connection or correlation there between good training and turning, life into hospitality, where it could be seen as just a part-time thing, into a career?
It's not only what I think, the data is right there. I mean, people have shown by investing in people, one of the number one things you can do even is outside of my hands is have the general manager or the store leader greet the person at the door day one, or greet them when they walk in. Have the team know that they're coming in,
Mm.
not like, hey, what do you want? Oh, hey, we expected you. Welcome. Good to have you. Jenny's in the back. We're going to grab her real quick. She wants to come out and say hi to you and sit with you for 20 minutes. 30% turnover goes down. So in that sense, then it's how do I feel? How do I belong? Starts to build confidence. And when you have confidence, you get back on the court. You get back, you get back in the game. And I think it's about mentorship. I think there's also something that drives us, front of house, back house, or whatnot, to be a part of something, to grow. Sometimes having a bad leader teaches you that I've had terrible leaders, which have informed many of my leadership qualities to do literally the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's there. Greet them, grow them, give them the opportunities, get them to have buy-in, and watch as they start to grow and develop. I think a huge piece of the puzzle, going back to the systems and the bear and all of this, a lot of people don't make that first leap to management because they make less money in management and have got more hassle in management.
Mm.
So I think it's a combination of, and the solution to that is systems again, right? You were at 7 shifts. Here's a quick story. I'm with my nephew. Last weekend, it's his first job waiting tables. He had to come in town to deal with some stuff that we were there with and family. And so he had to leave. He texts his manager and he says, I've got to go. And she goes, okay. Then he couldn't come back yet. He texts her the next day saying, I'm still up here, needed. I really can't make it back. Now, he told them before that this might be a day by day, and I understand they have a job to run.
Yep.
But these are those times, right? He's a teenager. He's gonna pick his, where his loyalty goes, and it's gonna be to the family.
Yep.
Well, here's a business that's been in business for 20 years, whatever it is. What does he have to do? He has to text the manager. Manager never got back to him. He gave him a day's notice. Sorry. The next day, he gets the text. Where are you? I texted you. So now you've got this 22-year-old manager who he's been texting with, didn't text back, has to now call all around. They're annoyed. They hate their job. They walk on the floor. They're pissed at everybody. Well, then no one wants to take that job. What's the solution? You were part of it, right? Hey, the solution is very simple. Whether 7 shifts or another provider of it, hey, throw it up into the group. Whoever isn't into overtime or doesn't have a shift gets pinged. They get to ping back. It's not only legally compliant, it saved all of these antiquated messaging around. And I'm just sitting here being like, these people can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
For $49 a month, you could have saved thousands of turnovers. So back to your question, right? Do I think training grows people? 100%. Get that blocking and fundamental in place, like these systems that make managing suck less, so people want to grow into that position and they're willing to take a step back financially to take a further step, because you can end up making a lot of money in this industry and it's great. Have training, feel really good that it was great for me when I was 22 and I realized I was the best person to lead the shift because everyone
Mm,
felt taken care of and I was building
mm,
relationships and people felt good and I knew what it meant. That felt good. That made me want to go to the next level and go to the next level. So training teaches you the wins that make you feel good, that want to grow in your position. Systems put the guardrails in place that you're not always putting out fires and pissed off.
yeah. No, I love that. I think that's a lot of what we were trying to solve together when we were at Seven Shifts when we were chatting through our stuff. But I think that, I think back to your Burger King example, right? They probably had a pretty good training program. They probably got everybody locked in. That's why everyone felt like they had like a little vibe. That's what the vibe was what it was because they all probably had that together and they felt they were part of one unit.
Yeah, and it was a good, it's a franchise-based business. It was a good franchise later. They had good people in place. Look, I got in trouble. I learned, I'm still 14 and I'm using the hose from the dishwasher to spray somebody. And yeah, you can't do that, right? But I
Right.
got reprimanded and properly, and I got coached up properly. Can I tell you that's going to be every franchise that goes through that owner? Absolutely not.
No.
So
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be in that moment. But that's also the power of restaurants. It's well, another reason I'm on the Independent Hospitality Coalition in LA. We've got 1,200 restaurants, and I'm a board member. And this is me donating my time and our company's money. And we're doing advocacy work. One of the reasons why I do this is because restaurants are where we learn to uphold in society, kind of. And I don't know if I'm using those words right, but it's where I learned to show up on time. It's where I learned
Yeah.
to play in a team. It's where I learned the repercussions because I crossed the line. It's where I learned community. It's where I learned to listen that somebody else's music is just important to them as my music is important to me. And it's these little micro hubs that we then we learn in the home, we learn at work. I think and that's why I love that the restaurant industry is the number one job for teenagers and for people. Why I want to do so much for training for that, because this is how we help develop stronger communities, better societies. This is our opportunity to actually control the information. So that goes back to, I was fortunate enough to be in a good company, also with a very good, solid owner and operator at the top who put good leaders in place that made us feel like we were a part of something bigger.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think, I love the way you put that. It's not whether you stay in the restaurant industry or in the hospitality industry or not, it's just generally really good life skills because you get thrown into the fire, on a daily, hour by hour sometimes, right? Shift by shift. And you learn to band together and get through it. And then it almost makes you, you kind of embrace that as you go forward. But if you have the right structure in place, it could be completely chaotic and there's no structure where you're like, oh, well, set you up for failure. But I think that foundational piece of what you're offering, I think is key. And I think that's awesome that you're doing that. And I think really advocating for the SMBs, right? I think, you probably see it too. I see it in when I was at NRA, like everyone just seems to be focusing on mid-market enterprise. That seems to be the place people want to, but I feel like SMBs are the heart and soul of so many communities. Some of my favorite restaurants in the city are just mom and pop little hole in the wall restaurants that need a lot of the help, but I feel like they're very overlooked.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we do mid-market too because we got to keep the lights on. And
Yeah.
and so I love working with emerging brands because they've come to a point that they've got something, they're ready to invest in it. They're ready to sort of bottle up the sauce, figure out a little bit of off the shelf, a little bit of custom. What's really cool is mid-market, emerging, small are really comfortable with getting a lot of our off-the-shelf training.
Mm,
And then some of them will invest in the modular, but I'm really digging, especially with this like leadership, that I can capture a great story from one brand and share it with another, and they're into it because it's peers learning from peers, which is cool as opposed to sort of top down learning. And it's a combination. Also, the thing I think that people understand now, it's different when you're talking about true top-down enterprise software, but for somebody like myself that also deals with compliance,
mm,
a lot of these franchise owners are small operators. Maybe they've got 3 to 5 units, and so they've got one HR person or trainer, and the parent company doesn't give them all of the information that they need, and sometimes it's for plausible deniability, and sometimes they just haven't invested in it. There's a lot of brands out there that
right.
You would think they'd be much farther along. So we get the opportunity to come in and train them in what feels like a mid-market enterprise, but they're just a small business
Mm,
owner. And we fight for that in California, where I am a lot, saying like, I know they own a McDonald's, but or a Subway, but they're pulling for 40, $50,000 to the bottom line. Like they're not feeding their family off this. This is not, I say, don't mistake the CEO of Taco Bell
right.
for the owner of a Taco Bell,
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
are. So all of it really matters and is important. But yep, I love helping the independents and kind of scaling. I love that the mid-market and enterprise is cool with sharing our content across the board
Yeah.
because we're onto something, right? It's like when you and I connected, it was because we were trying to figure out how to populate memes and GIFs when people sign in, because we did this test case with Dave's Hot Chicken because
Yeah.
they were struggling with stuff during the pandemic and the managers didn't want to, micromanage. And we were like, well, hey, when they clock in, let's put a little funny little meme or a GIF or something that at that point it was like things with masks, like how to wear it properly. Well, let's make this work. And we're evolving that tech and we're figuring that stuff out. But
Yeah.
even things like that, getting into sort of driving the behavior, right? And so I
Yeah.
don't know. You made me think about it. You're right. That's what we were working on together.
Yeah. 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 And you talk about this too. It's hilarious because you talk about the dated anti-harassment stuff where it's like someone in the office, you put a hand on their knee, and it's like so much of the training models we go through are just so, I think, out of touch with what is we practically live through, right? And I think what you were trying to do is really bring that back and make it way more resonant with that workforce. Again, a lot of folks are maybe in their high teens, early 20s. You give them a picture of a bunch of people in a boardroom. They're gonna be like, what the hell is this? I'm not going to pay attention, right? Like I don't even pay attention when I see that stuff, let alone, kids in their young, early 20s.
Yeah, 100%. So, right, like back to this, right? The meme when they clock in. We can do that and we can make the same one and drop it to small SMB. We could drop it to enterprise. That was an enterprise brand, basically, we're working with across the board. But they're all they're all wanting to learn the same way. So how do you make this
Mhm.
thing cool, modern, accessible, micro, impactful? Uh, it's society has evolved and taught us that you can picture really can be worth 1,000 words, right? Or whatever that
Yeah.
statement is. Make it a meme and make it a GIF and make it impactful. But 100%. Here's what's great. You can have all of the gimmicks and gadgets coming on and AIs moving through. And I know we're probably running out of time and we didn't even tap AI. And I know that's your big thing. Here's
Well,
what
yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
is at the end of the day, a human telling a story, just put a human in a backdrop and just let me tell you for 1 minute a story of something that happened and why that matters to me. That is still to me the one of the most powerful ways of informing and driving behavior. I mean, it's a human in front of you. So maybe you cut the edges, maybe you drop some graphics, maybe you clean it up, maybe you switch the format up, but that still resonates. And that's what's cool with what, again, going back to SMB and everybody and modern training is we're blending all that together and it's working. So what we wanted to do 5 years ago is really working now because of all of it coming together, right? Tech,
Mhm.
adaptability, finances,
Yeah.
ROI, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, I think that's really the tech that resonates is the one that people can relate to, because otherwise, who's going to use it, right? I mean, I look at the tech in my daily life, right, and the stuff that maybe my parents use versus what I use versus what I see my nieces and nephews using, right? It's like it changes, and you have to change with the times. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. You can't just assume that everyone's going to want to stick with it. So you brought up AI. I want to take maybe a step back here as kind of like our last discussion point, and what get a sense of what excites you, as you look forward into the industry. What is something that you're like, hey, this is really cool that's coming up, and I think this is going to really stick.
As in me with training specifically and
Yeah,
AI
training,
or
or AI, or I mean, whether it's in your world or just generally kind of in hospitality with all of this tech that's out there, right? Like, what excites you in your specific world, and then what are some of the other broader things you're seeing where you're like, hey, this is really going to change the industry?
well, I think AI in general, outside of training specifically, maybe I can tie it in, but let's talk about this real quickly, is you've had people on the show, right? Five Out, Brandon, we've
Yeah.
got Claire Coggs, right, and Matt Wampler, and you've just got a lot of these companies that are figuring out how to package data and give the team members an answer that allows them to make an action item. And whether it's how many avocados to order and prep, whether it's how many people to schedule, the fact that you can literally do all of these things, automatically, and
Mm.
machine learning can make this thing happen. And, AI versus machine learning, right? Whatever we'll call it both for now,
Yeah.
for the point of this conversation, that this non-sentient but smart thing can absolutely organize the numbers and literally just give you the answer, or literally just make the action item, and then you have the ability to override it. Like, here's the scheduling, here's your ordering, here's all of that stuff. I mean, think about it. First off, the amount of money it's going to save and is saving is incredible. And I can tell you somebody who's managed a hell of a lot of profit and loss statements just doing that. Number two is getting managers out of the back office. So now you get into, do I want to be part of this? I don't want to be part of this to sit in the cubicle. I want to be part of this to build relationships, and
Yeah.
whether with my team and my guests. So giving them time, it's going to affect turnover, engagement, sales. So these systems that do all of the stuff that people don't get in the restaurant industry to do is absolutely incredible. For training specifically, there's a couple of things. One is, I like that courses are going to get easier for local people to build on a store level to be able to inform anything that changes. And what I want is people take our off the shelf training, because no one's going to want to do anti-harassment or leadership. You just can't get that stuff we're doing. Take that. But then now you're empowered to build your own menu, to do things like that. I'm a little wary, and I can get yelled at for this, of full built out AI courses, because it's a lot of reading. Sure, it's in 1,000 languages, but no one likes to read. It's going to get better with video and things like this. So I'm not a big fan of the AI built course yet as much, but I like that the accessibility is there for somebody to do it if they need it, how to make their own version of a cappuccino.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's great is it's accessible, it's becoming easier, but then there's going to be this whole future dynamic approach, which means this: the user journey is going to be more custom and tailored. And that I'm really excited. I want to build my courses, our courses, Arrow Up, in different ways that we can break up. And depending on how you learn best, you're going to get that information in a way that fits with you a little bit more. Back to, I went to I'm a psych major. I'm obsessed over whether it's Myers-Briggs, right? Do you like the black and white information? Do you need it to be a little bit more empathetically delivered to you? I want that to follow your journey. So where are we going as Arrow Up? We're going to own the employee journey. We're going to own it from when you walk in the door all the way through to the end, because we know we're making the best content to deliver to you. We understand what you need and what you don't need. We know how to package it in a way that feels right. Ultimately, we're going to get the information from the POS or from Ovation or from Incentivio is going to give us this information, and we're going to know how to cater it and tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Based on what the customer wants, based on how I need it. Do I need to improve my sales? Do I need to respond differently based on what the customer said of their last visit? All of this stuff is going to evolve, be packaged, and just dripped to me in the smallest, most micro, tangible, digestible way possible. And I love that, because at the end of the day, let's break through the noise. Tell me what I need to do, and as much as you can do it for me, and then I add just my human touch to it, and we can move forward. That's awesome. That's where we're moving. That's what I'm excited by on the human side of it.
No, I love that. And I'm excited too. I think technology is advancing at such a rapid pace now. And it's what excites me is like, how are we going to apply it to the practical and the day to day to make things more efficient, right? And to really, I think, especially in hospitality, where there's almost like an overabundance of options for operators. Just the folks that I talk to, there's just so much, right? And everyone's claiming AI and ML and all these different things, like you said. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how are they going to help the business move forward? So that I think is what excites me. And Jason, I'm excited to see what you do over there at AeroUp. I know we're coming up on time here, and you brought up. I feel like this could be like another 2 hours. Maybe we'll say that for our own.
Yeah,
When I
yeah,
I'll come down to LA, we'll hang out, and I'd love to hear more
yeah,
stories. Usually, how I
yeah.
love to wrap these up is with a quick lightning round. So I'm going to throw a few questions at you. First thing that comes to mind, let's hear it. So to start, what's your current favorite cocktail of choice?
Martini.
What
Still
type?
a good martini. So vodka martini up. I've actually gone back to just a little bit of vermouth if it's good vermouth.
Okay.
Sometimes a kiss of dirty, but I've arced through my Negronis and everything, and I've come back to if you just get a good clean and you do the martini right, it's
Nice.
beautiful.
And do you have a spot? You travel a lot of different restaurants. Do you have a spot where they make the best martini?
Your local steakhouse.
Mm,
And
okay.
so I think, Normandy Room here, which is absolutely great, part of the Death and Co. company. I like it because they do a little like sea salt spray and stuff like that,
Mm,
which you can get a little nutty on. But there's something about going to a steakhouse and the first drink you order is a chilled martini for me, 2 olives. It's just my mouth's watering talking about it. And I think it's great, and everyone's got their spot, and that, and a wedge salad, and a
yeah.
steak, and that's you're kicking in my last meal right from the start.
Okay. There, that was going to be one of my questions. I love that. So you know what martini I would get, but we'll yeah.
Espresso martini.
Yes, dessert for appetizer.
I don't know how you do it, and then can go. I guess you go out, right? I'm up for the next 12 hours then.
I don't know. I feel like I can take one of those and still pass out later if I need to. So, but I mean, in our world, it's a lot of burning the candle on both ends. So yeah, it is really
Yeah,
nice and that helps. Um,
yeah.
is there a home cooked meal you are famous for?
I make this is, I don't know how sexy this is or not, but I make a really good vegan taco.
Mm,
And I guess that comes off because I just talked about a steakhouse. I'm really having fun, right? Starting with the garlic chopped up, moving to the onions, but the world of mushrooms that's available in the markets now. And sure, I
mm,
started with cremini, and then I moved into maitake, and then I moved into hand of the woods, and I'm really playing around with all of these different
mm.
mushrooms. And what was fun is I have friends that are in the plant-based meat business, plant meat, right? And I want to support in all ways, but I was like, I don't know what's in there, sodium and different. And I want to make it myself. So I cooked my own lentils. And so I first, right, chopped down the mushrooms, blend them, cook them all the way down, garlic. It's
Mm,
beautiful.
mm.
I actually put a little soy sauce inside of there, which is the secret to everything. I
Yeah.
cook salad dressings and all. And then you throw in the lentils, right? Then you take the tortilla and you get some good Parmesan on top of that. Then I make what I've been calling my dirty slaw, and so it's
Mm.
lemons and different stuff with the avocado and the lettuce. So I'm going on and on, but
No, no, this
it's
I'm hungry. Now we're
yeah,
cooking. Yeah.
yeah. I'm like I got this. Again, I'm more FOH than BOH, but
Love it.
I got this.
Love it. That's awesome. Is there outside, I mean, you're in LA. Is there another city in the world where you're like, hey, this is like a really good foodie city?
Well, for the States, Chicago really goes off. I think LA is amazing. But I mean, we did just come back from a trip to Paris, and I just, it just kind of blew me away what they're doing, like in the 11th district over there. If anyone heads over there, there's some incredible restaurants. Bambino is one we went to. There's a bunch of different restaurants. The vibe is right. The
Mm,
drinks are amazing. The seasonal, we were there for white asparagus, so I couldn't get away from it. But I'm really enjoying what they're doing over there. I'm not a fan of heavy butter, old school French cooking. What
right.
they're doing with like fresh vegetables, acid, they're really doing something incredible. And I absolutely love that I can have the cleanest meal,
Yeah.
destroy a $35 bottle of wine that just dominates anything I'm having over here.
Yeah.
Then wake up and yeah, and eat a bunch of bread and butter and wake up feeling like a rock
Feel good.
star.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just walk it off the next day. I know. Did France last year. I absolutely loved it. Paris, one of the coolest places I went to. Again, the dining experience there is unbelievable. Talk about vibe. Like they have vibe down pat. But this
Yeah.
really cool bar we went to was called Bijou, which I think means kiss in French. They no menu, right? You sit at the bar and you tell them, what are you into? That's how you make they make you drink. Oh, you're into this. Okay, do you like it? Like more alcoholic or more this or more sweet or more whatever smoky, and they just make you these drinks and these really cool. And it was like the coolest thing. We sat there for like hours and had like 6 or 8 drinks each, and like felt great the next day. It wasn't, and then ate a bunch and then whatever, and you feel good. So yeah, I love that. Paris for me is up
Yeah.
there too. Yeah,
It's up there. So it was a great thing. And I know people say, well, you walk so much. That's why I feel good. I know. Maybe it's just the ingredients are cleaner and better.
better
And
ingredients.
yeah,
Yeah,
so it's fantastic. But listen, I'm not taking anything away from LA. LA is the food city. It's if anyone's listening, eat in LA, and there's just some incredible restaurants.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm overdue on a trip there, so when I do, I'm gonna definitely pick your brain on on a list of places to go. So last question for you here is, we're talking about LA. What is your favorite restaurant in LA right now, and your favorite dish from that restaurant?
See, I'll get in trouble. So I will just tell you, I can only tell you this. Friday night, we have somebody coming in town, and we're taking them to Ronin, a little local spot on Melrose in Hollywood. And two things that I cannot wait for. It's a little family-owned business. It's a great story of a husband and wife that met working at another restaurant and opened up their own spot. His pizza crust is like, and it's unbelievable. Neapolitan pizzas is like a campfire marshmallow, but without the sweet. I sit there and the burnt and the flaky and the way I pick it apart. I pull this thing apart and no one can
Wow.
talk to me. I'm upset every time it gets my full attention. So anything attached to that crust destroys me. And he does a Caesar salad, radicchio. It's just whatever he gets. I say he, the chef, just is amazing. So my mouth is watering for that Caesar salad
Oh,
and maybe the Brooklyn pizza with onions, whatever it, mushrooms, whatever it's going to be. So there's a lot of great restaurants out here, and a lot of them are in part of my community, but that's one that I can't wait to go to
mm,
on Friday night that I'm bringing somebody to. So I
that's
figure that's
high
how I'm going to
praise.
answer that.
Okay, high praise. I love that. I mean, I've written, I actually just made a note of that from my LA list, so I'm excited to check that out when I come down. Jason, it was an absolute pleasure. I mean, again, every time we chat, I feel like the time flies by because it's always great conversation. If folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I love LinkedIn. So Jason D. Berkowitz.
Okay.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. My email, jason at arrowuptraining.com, the company arrowuptraining.com. And either one of those are great. Insta, we're working it out a little bit. We'll see where it
Okay.
goes. But you
Great.
check out the website, you check out LinkedIn, shoot me an email. We're all, like we say, right? We're all weirdly available and love to geek
Yeah.
out over this stuff.
Yeah. And I guess for all the operators that are listening, what's what's something you'd want to tell them, and what should prompt them to come and have a conversation with you?
Well, one very specific thing is we are really diving into this community on building supervisors into leaders. And whether it's recently, if you're in California and APAGA reform said they'll lower your penalties by 85% if you could show you trained your managers, it's just one
Mm,
thing. 70% of employees quit because of bad managers. All of these reasons why. Well, now we do a lot of stuff, but what we're doing that I think is cool is we're grabbing supervisors and leaders because we can talk with them as operators, capturing all of their stories and lessons, bottling them up into almost like a weekly show that we're dripping to all of the supervisors and leaders out there. So get on board with us, join the subscription. Our app feels like Apple TV Plus. We'll put it on your app if you need it. It's okay. We play well with everybody, but reach out if you want to talk about your leaders and supervisors, get in touch because there's a movement happening. And I want people to reach out because I want their stories too. I want them to add to the community. That's what's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Storytelling, I think, is I mean, historically, it's how we pass on information, right? And I think it becomes a lost art at times because we get too reliant on tech. But I think, the best way I love to learn and converse is over stories, and you are the master at it, my friend. So
Well, I keep good people around me, and thank you. And you're right. Let the supervisors tell stories to other supervisors. That's how they're going to learn, not because they read the rule on a piece of paper.
Exactly. Yeah. You brought up a lot of really cool things, which I want to try and recap as best I can. And, obviously leadership development is so key at an early stage, really at any stage of your career, but it can really change the trajectory of turning, again, supervising to leaders, right? I love that kind of the way you put it there, because I think that's a really good way to put it. And I think that's the missing piece a lot of times, right? The title doesn't necessarily mean the skill just comes with it. Your story about Burger King, I think that it shows us I think it shows your persistence, right? And the way you approach things, but more importantly, how important, vibe and what vibe in hospitality does to bring people back, right? Because they want to be part of that. And again, if your staff have that and your brand has that from top down, then that essentially creates a really good community where people want to continue to come back. Hospitality people like to be part of their tribe, right? The tribe is important. You want to be around people that you feel like you. The two most important words are cash flow, which, yes, that's what, makes the business go, keep the lights on. The two important things of what you're trying to really help with is what's my job and how am I doing, right? Which I think is the key. I think,
yep.
And I think, outside of restaurants, I think even if you look at on our side, on the tech side, a lot of new people come in. That's what they're always wondering, right? Like, what am I doing? Am I doing it well? And what's the feedback loop there? And really, you talk about building relationships, how important that is. And a lot of the breakdowns that happen in restaurants is because of exhaustion and bad communication, which is where you come in and help bridge that gap. And, your goal to help SMBs is something that, we're going to continue to follow and wish you a ton of success. And of course, happy to partner with you as we do this. And again, I think really all of us trying to just help hospitality get to a better space with tech, which is what we're trying to do. So, Jason, thank you. Is there any last parting words you want to share with the audience, before we wrap up here?
No, I'd like to thank you. I mean, you're an incredible listener. The way you're able, I love how you do these recaps, and I love how you're, taking your connections, experience, and perspective and growing the collective understanding. So my follow-up is just a thank you for it.
I appreciate that. And I think it takes a village. I think, I've hanging out with people like you, Alistair, some of the people you just mentioned on the show, right? That people have had on this, as previous guests, and fortunate enough to create great relationships and friendships with. I learned more from just being a fly on the wall at some of these dinners and hearing you guys speak, because you guys have so much experience and so much knowledge to share. And I feel like I wouldn't be where I am without being connected with folks like you. So thank you for being, being a great person in the industry and being a friend and being, awesome Jason that you are. So you have so many other great stories. I mean, the Kobe one you told me was awesome, but we do have to wrap up here.
Another time.
Jason, I can't thank you enough. Again, for those that have tuned in, another awesome episode of Data Delicacies. I'm your host, Arun. This is powered by Incentivio. If you're interested in joining the show, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me at arun@incentivio.com. We love to bring the best and brightest in the industry to talk all things tech. As you can see here with Jason, talking about kind of the back of house things, right? So there's so many different aspects of this industry. We want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Tune in every Wednesdays when the show gets released. And if you're interested in being on, shoot me a note. We'd love to have you on. Jason, thank you again for joining. I'll catch you at the next show somewhere, or if I make my way down to LA, we'll go to Ronin and have some pizza together. But in the meantime, have a great summer, and thanks again for joining.
Right back at you.